Although in 2025, AWS introduced the concept of free AWS accounts for new customers, in this video, I want to make a case for using paid accounts even if you are a beginner to AWS. Now, I know this might be a bit of a controversial take since many people asked AWS for years to have sandbox or playground accounts, and I'm right now here telling you that you should avoid it, but here I am. I'm going to support my claim, so let's get started. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about the facts about the AWS free tier and AWS free accounts. Historically, there were no free or paid plan AWS accounts. There were free tiers in AWS services, some of which had free usage for up to 12 months. But since 2025, AWS has introduced what is called like a free plan account and paid plan accounts. So in essence, free AWS accounts offer you up to 6 months of AWS usage where you can run AWS resources without getting billed at all, and you receive up to $200 in credits. However, once the credit quota or the 6 months are up, then your workloads are going to be stopped until you upgrade to a paid plan. And additionally, not all AWS services and features are available in free plan AWS accounts. Okay, free plan AWS accounts are meant for new customers, and they are only granted once and once only. In order to enforce this, AWS thoroughly verifies your customer credentials, so like the name of your account, your credit card, your billing address, your email, and none of those things can be shared with any other AWS account, and that includes inactive AWS accounts or accounts that you have deleted in the past. So AWS has a large database of all their customers throughout the years, and if they, for any reason, suspect that you've been a customer of theirs before, you will not be eligible to open an AWS free plan account. Notoriously, sub-addressing or mail extensions, also called as the Gmail Plus trick, don't work for creating several free plan AWS accounts. They've been a very well-known trick for creating multiple AWS accounts in the past. So what this means is, like, for example, user plus account 1 at gmail.com and user plus account 2 at gmail.com. Both of these emails redirect to user at gmail.com. You will receive, if you own user at gmail.com, you will receive email sent to these two email addresses redirected to your account. But AWS saw this as different emails, and you could have multiple AWS accounts by doing this trick. However, this only works now for AWS paid plan accounts and not for free plan accounts. So if once you're opening a free plan account, you introduce all your credentials and your data, and AWS suspects that you've been their customer before, then you will be greeted with this screen saying that you're not eligible for the free plan, and that if you continue, you're going to be using a paid plan account, which I'm anyway advocating that you should probably use a paid plan account from the get-go. So just to let you know that the restrictions or the limitations on using free plan AWS accounts are quite harsh, because they only want you using a free plan account once, and that's it. Okay, so let's compare the free versus the paid AWS accounts, and hopefully you will understand what I mean by me advocating for using paid accounts from the get-go. You would think that if you use a free account, you have a lot of advantages, that you have the advantages of using AWS for free, and that you are not going to have to give your credit card information. Well, that's all wrong. The $200 in credits for new customers and the free usage of select services, those are also included in paid accounts, not just in the free accounts, okay? The free usage of select services, that means, for example, there are some AWS services like IAM that are free of use forever, and you don't need to pay for that. Then there are some AWS services like S3 that they include a monthly quota of usage where you're not getting billed, and you only get billed after using that quota. In paid accounts, you also don't pay as long as you're within that quota. And you can still get your $200 in credits if you're a new customer, even if you're using a paid account. So really, there's not really a big advantage of using a free plan AWS account. The main difference between these two is that once you exceed the quota of a service that you're using, your workload is going to stop in the free account, whereas you will get billed with pay-as-you-go basis if you use a paid account. And furthermore, as we've already said, like there are some AWS services and features that are only available in paid accounts. And so you don't even get access to those in the free AWS accounts. So personally, I think the advantages are not really there. If you at least didn't have to give your credit card information in a free account, then I can understand that from a privacy standpoint, but you still need to give it. So in the end, you're not really getting that much from a free AWS account. And the reason why I advocate for even beginners to use paid accounts from the beginning is that I believe that learning to manage AWS costs is an essential skill that you should learn as soon as possible, as soon as you're starting to learn anything about the cloud seriously. So monitoring your costs and setting alarms is an essential skill. You should know what resources and services you're using, and you should set an alarm saying like, okay, if I go over this threshold on the costs, please alert me, send me an email, send me an SMS, tell me about it, because I would need to rush to stop it, okay? You also should be able to manage budgets and learn to do it. AWS has what it's called like AWS budgets, and you can say like, okay, I have a monthly budget of $15, and if I get close to that, so at $12, once I'm at $12, please send me a notification, an email, so that I can see what's going on. If there's something unexpected, I will know to spin it down. And this is like best practice and really, really important when you are a student and learning about AWS, but you need to learn how to tear down infrastructure that you're no longer using or you no longer need. It's a very common mistake for beginners to spin up something, forget about it, and then 2 weeks later, like a server that they spun up is racking up charges, and you didn't know about it, and like, okay, you rush to tear that down. It is best practice that when you do your labs, you spin up the infrastructure that you need, you play around, you toy with it, but then you need to clean up. You need to do the janitor role, because you are running stuff in someone else's hardware, and that costs money, and you should be responsible and spin that down. Don't leave it there running. If you use a Free-plan account, then your workloads are going to stop. So pretty much what has happened is that AWS has created those guardrails for you without you having to set up any of these things. But in my opinion, this is giving you the fish today, and it's not teaching you to fish other fish by yourself tomorrow. So you're going to be hungry tomorrow. It's easier for you now, but it's going to be harder for you later. And I believe that paid plan accounts teach you a lot about accountability. So one thing that many students or learners in the beginning are afraid of is that they don't want to pay anything to AWS for toying around with labs or demos or hands-on practice stuff. And you should be comfortable, in my opinion, with running stuff on someone else's hardware and with the fact that that costs money. If you want to run a computer program, you either buy your own server and you run it over there, or you rent someone else's machine, computer, which might be in another country, and know that running that costs some money, okay? And AWS in general is very, very generous with the free quota of usage per month on many of their services. So really, it's not a lot of costs, but if it is some costs, then it's probably some cents, a few bucks. And I think someone who is learning, you should be comfortable with that idea. And if you're going to learn stuff like AI and you spinning up some models, that can get more costly, but you also don't need to spend hundreds of dollars or like a massive amount of money. You're just learning and understanding how all of this works to hopefully work for a company that's going to put a lot of trust in you and not using resources in a super inefficient way that racks up costs. And these kind of things you learn in the beginning. So I believe that getting a bill shock is better as a student than as a worker in a company. We've all been there. We've all suddenly seen some costs in AWS that we didn't know how they got there. In my case, I was running my website in AWS, and I thought like the requests to S3 were out of whack. I was getting way too many requests, and the reason was that I had a lot of different pages in my website, and like every time someone would click on the next page, that would load a lot of more images and more things. So there were a lot of GET requests. And what I did is I simplified all of that and made just a slightly bigger page so that the number of requests would decrease, right? So again, this kind of experience is good for me It was good for me back then, and it will be good for you as you learn about cloud and AWS. There's also the fact that once you learn about cloud, you will want to spin up some products and create and build things. And the best practice is to have one account per product. And if you're just using one free account, because you can only have one, remember that we can only have one, what you're going to be doing is you're going to have a monolithic account where you have like all the products, you can have like all the different websites, all the different servers, or all the different things within that account. And that is not best practice. The best practice is to have separated environments, separated accounts for every single product. And Googling AWS Service X pricing or billing is something that should become second nature to you. So like you want to know how much you're going to be charged for using EC2 or S3, then Google it. Look at the documentation and read it. And I'm going to do that right now. If I, for example, want to include some media in my website and I go for S3, I can go to S3 pricing, storage pricing, and here I start to see things like, okay, if I use the standard class, the first 50 terabytes per month is going to cost me this amount, right? And there are different classes of storage, so you can decide whether they fit your use case or not, and even calculate some of these things. But this is kind of stuff that you should be learning even from the get-go, because it's important stuff. We all want to save money, we all want to be efficient, and cloud is no exception to that. One analogy I'm going to use to further support my point is the concept of training wheels. Like there are many parents who buy like bikes with training wheels for their kids because falling from a bike sucks, right? And like nobody is born learning how to ride a bike. And so in order for kids to avoid that kind of unpleasant experience, they get them training wheels and then they ride and they don't fall and it's nice. But the problem with that is that it's detrimental for their learning, okay? When I was a child, I used training wheels a lot because I was scared about falling and I was scared about riding bikes. I didn't ride a bike as a child. I didn't ride a bike as a teen. I was 14 years old when I finally decided that I wanted to learn how to ride a bike properly. And that's a really old age to learn how to ride a bike, but it's better late than never. And when I started to use a balance bike at 14 years old, I fell to the ground a few times because there's really no other way of learning how to ride a bike than to just do it and fall a few times. And eventually you learn how to balance the bike and you know how to ride properly. And the training wheels, the only thing that they have done is delay your progress. And I think it's exactly the same thing with AWS accounts. Using a free plan account is like putting training wheels on your bike. You're not going to be learning important skills that you should learn as soon as possible when you're getting serious into cloud. Now, are there niche scenarios that I can envision where free plan accounts might make sense? Yeah, there might be some situations where they might make sense. So let's say that, for example, you have plenty of free time within the next 6 months. Remember, there's a 6 months commitment for this. If you're just like, okay, you're unemployed or you're a student or what have you, and you want to explore AWS as much as possible within the next 6 months, then why not go for the free plan account? And maybe if you're not committed to learning AWS seriously, so like you're just like, I've heard about AWS, I've heard about cloud, let's just explore what this is, but I'm not interested in pursuing this necessarily. Maybe if these two conditions are given, I would recommend that you go with a free plan account. But even if you're just studying for the cloud practitioner, which is the most basic of AWS certs, I believe that at that point you're already a serious enough learner for AWS and that you should know how to open a paid plan AWS account, how to set up some alerts, some alarms, some budgets, some notifications to know if something is going wrong. That's, I think, basic information that you should learn as soon as possible. As you have heard from me, there are not many reasons why you should want to use a free plan AWS account. And newsflash, tons and tons of people have learned AWS before free plan accounts existed, and they haven't all run out of money, they haven't died. You certainly do not need a free plan account to learn about AWS, and it can even be detrimental to use one in the first place. Learning good habits and foundations in the beginning is going to save you lots of trouble down the line. Do you agree with my position or do you completely disagree with it? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this video useful, remember to like and subscribe to my channel. That helps me and the algorithm know that this is the kind of content that I should be creating. As you might know, I'm preparing for the AWS GenAI Dev Professional certification at this point, and I've already shared a few videos about that certification, which you can check over here. Until then, see you next time.